Right, we are live. I'm Henrik Andersson. I'm the CIO of Apollo Capital, and today we're in Singapore. A lot of activity in the crypto and blockchain space in Singapore this week. Everyone is coming to Singapore for a big conference this week, and today we have a very special guest with us. We have Todd Lemons from Veridium. So it's really great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
We have talked a lot about our investment philosophy. We are investing in digital goods, digital assets. We are investing in the foundation for asset-backed tokenization, and I think that's what you are doing falls in that category.
Yep.
You have been involved in the natural resources and environmental business for almost 3 decades. And Veridium is one of our investments at Apollo Capital. Maybe, Todd, you can give us a bit background about what you've been doing in your career and how you got involved with Veridium.
Absolutely, yeah. So I started my career off early working for natural resource management companies. Obviously, there's a lot of mismanagement in that industry. But as an engineer, I saw those problems more as a poor use of resources. And so we started creating market-based solutions to address the inefficiencies that drive actual environmental degradation. So that basically launched a 25-plus year career in addressing environmental problems more from a market standpoint and what are the market drivers of that. Of note, 10 years ago, when Kyoto was signed, they did not include agricultural conversion of forest as the actual largest source of emissions, or certainly the top 1 or 2. And so we actually embarked on writing an accounting methodology for how to account for emissions in a deforestation scenario, or conversely, if you were to avoid that, what the carbon emissions reduction would be. We successfully wrote that methodology, and it was internationally accepted. That's known now as RED+, REDD+, and that is REDD is embodied in the Paris Agreement. So it's a major offsetting mechanism. We also created the first RED+ project. Our Rimba Biodiversity Reserve is 65,000 hectares of forestry in Borneo. And that delivers a lifetime of 134 million tons of emissions savings, which is the equivalent, I think, of removing 100 million cars from the roads for 1 year. So those credits are generated over a 30-year period, and that makes us one of the largest carbon producers in the world, particularly of that class of carbon credits. We work for with an amazing group of Fortune 500 companies, over a dozen or so, well-known names like Microsoft and Intuit and Pricewaterhouse and Allianz and Zurich Insurance. And along the way, we see the challenges that they face on being able to first measure their carbon liabilities, their impacts, and then purchasing carbon credits. Particularly because our class of credits, which is sort of a preferred class because of its collateral, biodiversity, and social impact value, are traded OTC. So that makes it clumsy. Then pretty much all carbon credits are kind of clunky and they don't fit well into a complex global supply chain. So you measure those across global supply chains, then you purchase the credits at the corporate level, and then they don't sit well they're on different balance sheets. So companies struggle with that and how to truly allocate and match the credits with the liabilities at specific transaction points. And blockchain, came along, and companies started exploring blockchain as a technology for new supply chain management platforms. And that really gave us a common platform where we could digitize these assets and then easily integrate them into this digitized platform. And very easily and precisely match the carbon assets and offsets with carbon liabilities. So that's what gave rise to Veridium as a new company, and that's actually what caused IBM to contact us. being one of the world's premier supply chain, platform providers, particularly with their Hyperledger Fabric.
So you're working with a solution with IBM and Hyperledger for that companies who wants to offset the carbon. They have these products, maybe they have this big supply chain. It's really messy and hard for them to kind of calculate the impact, but with your system, it makes it really easy for them to be able to offset that carbon footprint.
Yeah, with our system and IBM. So these are well-known Fortune 500 companies. Ford, GM, Dow Chemical, Honda, etc. So they have industry-specific platforms. One for oil and gas, one for auto and aerospace, one for utilities. Those are obviously all carbon-sensitive industries, and those specific sectors began asking IBM to create a native token layer so that they could begin to actually transact over the blockchain. But they asked that there be some sort of carbon solution embedded in that token layer, and that's what led to the partnership between IBM and Veridium. So we're incredibly fortunate, to have such a partner like that can bring such incredible customer base to the table.
And I think this is the first time IBM partnered with an open blockchain, a public blockchain company like Veridium.
It is. We're actually the first token. So they also have a separate division that is beginning to provide token services particularly for tokenizing assets.
Yep.
And so we're actually the first that they've token that they've ever worked with.
That's fantastic. Yeah. That's super exciting. So you're working on their IBM Hyperledger for companies for the internal kind of offsetting of carbon, and then you have a public blockchain based on Stellar, as I understand it, where you will create a token called Carbon that represent or is backed by these natural resources.
Yeah, so this the IBM and Stellar partnership was really key to our grander vision, which is we really want to provide a platform where natural capital, the total value potential of all these natural capital assets can be realized. This is potentially the world's largest asset class. It is very illiquid. And so we want to create a platform that creates liquidity and price transparency or pricing mechanisms for that asset. That alone can completely unlock the potential of that asset class. We want those assets or those tokenized assets to live in both worlds. We want it to live in the wild as we speak. We want people to embrace this as sort of a new asset-backed green currency. We are working already on consumer applications. Our Verde Pay app essentially integrates with your bank accounts and your PayPal so that everything you purchase is automatically mitigated and environmentally neutral, or at least carbon neutral. So we wanted to have these consumer applications. We wanted the token to live and be in the hands of sort of the person on the street. But we also wanted to live in this corporate world, and we didn't want them to be separate, right? So we really are building a bridge or a channel between these two totally different liquidity pools because we think both are important to be able to affect change, real change. And so that's essentially what we're doing. And the Stellar blockchain is the only one that really allows us to do that effectively. And they were already partnered with IBM, so it was a perfect match, yeah.
So we have a tens of billions of dollars in carbon trade going on today. We have a cap and trade program in many countries.
Yeah.
I think that program alone is maybe around $35 billion, something along those lines. You have a voluntary kind of carbon market as well,
right,
that is quite illiquid today.
Yes.
And you're creating a standard for that with a token that will be liquid, that will be transparent, that you can trade.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah, so there are really two carbon markets, one driven by government mandates. We call that the compliance market. It's actually $84 billion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's grown up 56% since last year. I mean, as we approach 2020, carbon markets are really gaining steam. Price projections are by the World Bank, the IFC, Stanford University, put it on average of 200% price increase in this asset class by 2020. So pretty much 100% a year. And so you have this government mandated market, the compliance market. Those are liquid. Those credits trade on international, primarily European exchanges. But the interesting thing is that most of that, 95% of that, is secondary trading. So the real underlying consumption of that is maybe $2 or $3 billion.
Right. So it's just a lot of speculation going on in that market.
Yeah. Which of course is important, right? Yeah. That kind of liquidity is always important for any asset class. What we don't have that in the OTC markets. Obviously, it's all primary trading, and so that's simply what we want to unlock is that secondary trading, that price discovery. That alone, from a financial perspective, is always healthy. But what's really interesting to us as well is that you create 100x market for these assets, and those assets deliver immediate and quantifiable biodiversity and social impact dividends. So it really can be not only very, very interesting from a financial point of view, but it can be a significant mechanism for affecting change at scale.
So explain to me, so if a company wants to offset the carbon footprint, or a consumer as well, with your app that you're coming out with, you will actually burn that token? Is that how you consume it?
Yeah, that's right. So the token is sent to a burn address. The burn address sends a message to all of these assets are custodied by the Veridium Foundation. It's a Canadian nonprofit that is audited by KPMG. The assets are registered on internationally recognized registries such as the IHS Market Registry, or APX. So these are all well-known registries, publicly traded companies that track these assets. They're all serialized. So there's no question whether these assets exist and whether they match the number of tokens that are trading. So as they trade, then nothing happens to the underlying assets. But as either consumers or corporations actually consume them and want to actually offset a specific footprint and put that on their books, so to speak, then yes, the token is burned and the underlying asset is retired. And that would be reflected in the registry and on the blockchain.
And I say to our viewers here that if you have any questions for Todd or myself, just ask a question in the chat box beside the webinar, and we'll do a little bit of a Q&A at the end as well. So you mentioned you're building an app as well. I think you released an alpha version of that app. You're coming out with a beta later this year. And that app will let consumers offset their carbon footprint. It will be linked to your bank account, to your credit card account. Explain how that will work.
So the app in its early stages, you would simply load that up with Verde, our utility token, and it automatically integrates into your bank account. So at whatever interval you like, let's say on a monthly basis, you simply can integrate your monthly statement with the app, and the app will automatically calculate what the carbon reduction for all those purchases would be. And it will automatically burn the Verde that's in the wallet and then send the messaging down to the foundation.
Fantastic. So you mentioned another token, Verde, as well. So you have actually a 2-token system.
Right.
What is that second token? What does it do?
So the first one is purely asset-backed,
that's carbon.
Stable token, the carbon token. We needed then a utility token to accomplish a couple of things. One is essentially just this messaging and the interface with the app. So it kind of does the mathematical calculations, right? It also provides access to the exchange. We're building this exchange. It'll be enterprise grade for corporations to be able to transact and trade or consume the carbon token. So it grants access to that. To the crypto trading community, it provides discounts if you as the base trading pair for all of the what will eventually be dozens of natural capital asset tokens. If you trade in Veriday as the base trading pair, then it will provide transaction discounts or exchange discounts.
So it will be a trading pair on the exchange.
Yes.
For all these assets.
Yeah.
It will be a token that will be used to pay the fees in the system.
Correct. Yeah. And
that
part of those
are
are burned each time that the fees are paid.
Fantastic. So it's a limited amount of tokens that will be burned over time.
Yeah, the utility token will only be created in ratio to of 100 to 1 for the actual token sale, right? So the token sale is hard capped at 25 million. That's 2.5 million carbon tokens, and then we'll be creating a limited amount of Veriday for that after the initial token sale. There will be no more Veriday created. Of course, there will be carbon created, given that it's an asset token, right, based on pull-through demand from the community, so as needed.
Fantastic, and I think you recently made a pretty exciting hire to join as the CEO, I believe.
We did,
the exchange.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. I'd like to introduce William Wei is our new CEO. We're very excited about that.
We have William here today as well.
William, come here. Most recently spent a short time with Binance in exploring the Taiwanese market for them. But prior to that, an illustrious 10-year career with Next and then Apple. And so I'll kind of turn it over to him. But so we keep adding substance and depth to our tech team. We've been the environmental thin part of the environmental fintech for 20-some years, but we're excited about this, building out our tech team.
Fantastic. William, do you want to talk a little bit about what you hope to accomplish and build in terms of the exchange?
Yeah. Hi, morning from Singapore. My name is William Wei. First time I met with Todd and Jim, they started this 20-something years ago. We kind of resonated in the vision that they want to build, just like what Todd was mentioned. I'm an engineer background, computer science. Early year, I was at Next, using Next technology, building operating system. Mostly our core technology. We're building tool, we're building the foundation for the Next computer later on was acquired by Apple. Yeah. So continue on that path. My background is build a tech team. So their mission is, for me, is to build this Veridium exchange, just like what the current Binance is the most, the largest volume trading. They have in Binance the most efficient matching engine, which is centralized. They also parallelly has a distributed, decentralized exchange on the go parallelly. So our path is going to be the same for the natural assets token exchange.
Right. So
kind of the analogy is like that. And we are really excited that they choose Stellar as a main chain. Our team are able to contribute not just to building the exchange, but to the Stellar community in terms of, for example, the virtual machine. Mm-hmm. We are also thinking about coming up with a language, that most efficient language for this industry, to embed in a language level that the business logic in this natural resource. And also we can contribute to a Stellar foundation, or even have our own main chain.
Fantastic. And just to reiterate that carbon will just be the first asset on this exchange.
That's right.
There is a huge market,
which
is the natural capital asset. Is that what you call them?
That's correct.
A market. What other kind of assets do you guys
water credits. You guys in Australia are very familiar with water markets. Probably one of the more mature ones in the world. This asset class without a doubt, is going to become the most important asset class in the world. It's unavoidable. And we long ago, back in the 1960s, when we crossed that threshold of 3.5 billion, began to, we consume more than Earth is able to reproduce. And so we are in the beginnings of a completely new economic paradigm where we will have to price the environmental costs of everything we consume into the price of those goods and services. And carbon markets are a realization that there is a cost, an emissions cost to the based on our consumption. Those are the first assets that globally as a society we began to give a price to. We've already given prices to the derivatives of natural resources. You can price lumber and all those, but there's no pricing for standing natural capital. And it's a huge market potential that is going to be driven inevitably by the fact that we are actually sort of changing the economic paradigm we've used for thousands of years into a new modern paradigm that meets our current circumstances.
Fantastic. This is super exciting, super important as well.
Yeah.
And let's see if we have any questions from the viewers. I'll ask my colleague Tim to post the questions directly to me because I don't have access to the chat box at the moment. But if Tim, you can post the questions to me, and then we'll take it from there. We at Apollo will be back with many more updates this week from Singapore. We're meeting a lot of interesting projects like Veridium. And let's see if we have any questions from the viewers. Is there anything else you will add in the meantime that we didn't discuss?
Not that I can think of.
And you're hoping to launch when you're in the phase now with capital raising?
We are,
right?
yeah. So, we founded the company with a substantial, $8.5 million contribution. A large portion of that went to buying the original credit bank, not only from our own project that we own, but from a diversified. I think we have maybe 6 different projects that we buy credits from now.
Yeah.
So we're creating this world-class diversified underlying carbon bank. Then we've had pre-sales of about 5.5 million of that 25 million cap, and so we hope to complete that before Christmas. Certainly we will close the sale by mid-December, I would think.
And who are you seeing in Singapore this week? You've been traveling quite a bit.
We were in Korea. Recently. I think we probably have made some 2 or 3 really good partners there. Obviously, Korea is a very important market. They seem to really get and understand what we're doing, and so we're excited about that. Here in Singapore, of course, people are coming from all over the world, so we're meeting with just a wide variety of market participants from Europe and Asia primarily. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
We got one question from the audience. What are the challenges when it comes to adoption? I guess these are a question that many crypto projects are facing, the real world adoption. How do you going to tackle that?
So again, one of the advantages that the underlying asset we've been selling already to Fortune 500 companies for 8 or 10 years. So there's sort of a built-in, we're not reinventing the wheel per se. We're building a better mousetrap for certain. So that's that market of then you have IBM, who already has these blockchain platforms, and there's sort of this built-in demand. We have to figure out some of the details exactly of how they can use it. But IBM is leading that challenge. Then so those are really kind of 4 markets, but we hope that there'll be a high level of adoption as we begin to communicate the advantages of this as a asset-backed stable token, one of the only or few that can be truly verified independently. And then once we kind of create that liquidity, that huge secondary market of emissions trading, that very much likes this class of credits. If we can create that platform and that liquidity, and particularly supercharge that with this, before, they never had access to this additional liquidity pool. Emissions traders trade amongst themselves. So we think there's an incredible dynamic between those two groups that are interested for different reasons, but trading the same commodity. So,
yeah, I want to add a phenomena right now, especially recently from the crypto community. Stable token is going to be the next big things. Everybody, all the projects are racing to create the best stable token. When I met Todd, I tried to study his industry.
Mm-hmm.
What I certainly realized that this is the best, one of the best stable token. Not just stable, but it's steadily demand is increasing.
The demand for carbon credits is steadily increasing.
And especially for the mainstream to get into crypto, they need this in order to step into the crypto world. So this is a fantastic, perfect timing.
Fantastic. Do you think there will be a market for the use of the stable token to pay for other things? How do you see that developing?
That's what we are hoping, that in the future, everybody, if everybody has a stable token in their whole, you're not going to be, at this time, you're not going to be use Bitcoin for the spending, right? Sure. If you have stable token in your balance, might as well to put a few into the retail, buying coffee and all that, and we have planning to integrate this API with all this payment company. Then that will really become one of the killer application area.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So one of the things we've noticed on this trip, we've been meeting with a lot of funds in the crypto space, but that come from a very traditional background, VCs, ex-Goldman Sachs, and so on, and particularly family offices. And certainly there's really strong indication, and we all know there's, right now the crypto markets are really not that big, right? And there's this huge, hundreds of billions of dollars sitting on the sidelines watching this industry, and they clearly are, that traditional money, particularly family offices that are more worried about wealth preservation than anything, are not going to jump into a volatile marketplace like this. So they've all given us strong indication that what they are interested in is asset-backed tokens, stability, that allows them sort of a base for which they can go out and speculate or invest in a diversity of things, but they need that vehicle that is stable. And if it throws off environmental and positive social impacts, well, that obviously goes with most of the mandates of these family offices. So,
exactly.
We think it's a really exciting product, particularly for that sort of institutional.
Right, and for institutional investors, that becomes more and more important to have that kind of an environmental piece of.
So that they know they have a mandate to try and explore this amazing new market, and they have a mandate for social and environmental good. So this gives them a vehicle for both.
Fantastic. I think we covered a lot today. Fantastic to be here with you, with Todd and Veridium. If anyone wants to find out more about Veridium, where do they go?
Please contact me directly, Todd at veridium.foundation. Okay. Happy to answer any of your questions, and look forward to collaborating with all of you.
Do you have a website you want to direct them to as well?
Yeah, so www.veridium.io.
Fantastic. Thank you so much again.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.